o'clock on the dot. So we'll get started with the County Health Committee meeting. First order of business is to allow member Elsasser and member, who else is on? Oh, member Daly's on. So can I get a motion to allow them on? Member Coates and member Bryant. Please vote. Okay. Welcome, member Daly, member Elsasser.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The first thing we need to do, well, I guess the second thing we need to do is approve the minutes from the October 28th meeting. So can I get a motion for that? Member Williams and a second by member Blair. Any additions, subtractions, corrections? Seeing none, please vote. Member Elsasser?
Aye.
I believe that was aye for both. Thank you. Okay. That was unanimous. Thank you. We'll jump right into the informational items. And first we have the Board of Health. Good afternoon, Monica.
So there is no board minutes in your packet because our board did not meet in November. We actually combined our November and December meetings. However, in communication with Scott, I know that there has been a lot of questions about THE drinks. And so I'm happy to kind of give a little bit of an update on how that impacts us locally and kind of the work we're doing. So bear with me, and I know board member Daly is on the call, so if I ever use an acronym, I will quickly try to define it, but this is definitely Alphabet City in terms of the number of agencies involved. So first and foremost, THC hemp drinks are considered unapproved additives, so it's not considered a food product. Okay, so for the FDA, actually has to approve what we call either a food additive product or a general, what they call generally recognized as safe. So this does not account for that. Because it's not a food product or approved for food, it is outside the scope of our retail food and FDA food code that we actually fall under as a reference document. What makes this challenging is that the Farm Bill of 2018 came out and did approve hemp usage, but not for food products as well. But it became kind of a loophole area that certain states did actually create their own commissions, usually under like alcohol, to actually find a way to regulate it. And so what happened in Illinois is there is no manufacturing of these THC drinks in Illinois. They're coming in and being manufactured elsewhere and coming into our communities. Because they're not manufactured here, IDPH is not involved because IDPH is actually who at the state level reviews our manufacturing processes. So because it's a state to state transfer, it's actually under a federal lens, which is FDA. Locally, we've seen this in products before. If we go to a grocery store and we see it, we do have a process we're following similar to what Kane County is doing, in which we communicate with the establishment about the fact that they're using an unapproved additive. And kind of what does that mean for them? If, for example, we saw them in a retail entity like a restaurant, that they were actually mixing it themselves, then we could actually come into play because they're adding a non-food additive into the food making process. But most of what we're seeing is actually retail manufacturing based into like our large, grocery stores or other kind of convenience stores. And so because of it, it doesn't fall under the local. So all we really do is we do referrals to the state at that point. give them the discretion that they can destroy it themselves or, tell their wholesale supplier not to utilize it. And we also then do a referral to the state. But it, again, is a really interesting scenario because it falls between a federal and a state level kind of interaction right now. And again, locally, we don't really do anything because it's not considered a food item. So most of what we do is refer to the state where it is actually supposed to go, but they're having their own conversations with their federal partners about whose jurisdiction that's into. So clear as mud, and hopefully I didn't use too many acronyms in that conversation.
Only one.
Any questions for me?
Any questions? Yes, Member House.
I wanted to first thank you for clearing some of that up as much as possible anyway. If we have a retailer or business of some kind who is currently selling those, do you have any direction to them as to who they should contact to find out what steps they need to take to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing?
So I would first have them reach out to their, most of our food establishments, if the food establishment would have an inspector that they have been working with. So I'd first have them reach out to the inspector who will talk to them about the referral process and what they can do. But it's really hard because we see things that are like supplements, which are not food products, being sold in like a chain store right along with food. The challenge is buyer beware. The labels look very similar, but one of them is definitely a food label where the other one is a non-food label. And again, there's very clear regulations on what is actually a food additive. And so it can be very confusing to general public. And so again, this is going through the process. Our environmental health director, Carrie Panier, met with other regional environmental health directors, and we're hoping to kind of create a one-pager for our local governments to understand kind of these nuances as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Let's see. Next, we're going to jump down to permanent supportive housing update. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Get this flipped on. Let's see here. Perfect. Good morning or good afternoon. It's been a long day already. I'm with Home for All Continuum of Care. My name is Kate Green, here to share with you a little bit of an update about what we see happening right now on the federal landscape for permanent supportive housing, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. For anybody who's not familiar, the Continuum of Care is actually an organization that's mandated by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And our real goal is to get everybody kind of rowing in the same direction as it relates to those who are experiencing homelessness and the services and resources that we can bring forward as a community to help meet those needs. Every part of our country is housed within what we call a COC or continuum of care, but our service area here locally is Peoria, Tazewell, Woodford, and Fulton counties. And we have over 50 community partners who come to the table to talk about that strategy and to really deploy the resources that we have as effectively as we can. And that's not only our funded agencies, but it's school systems, healthcare, criminal justice, governmental bodies, and others that really have an interest or stake in this particular population. I don't think this will be a big surprise to anybody, but we certainly have seen our numbers rising. This particular count is called the point in time count. We do this every year, one night in the last 10 days of January, where we do a full census of both sheltered and unsheltered homelessness. And so this is not inclusive of doubled up families or couch surfing. These are individuals who are either in our emergency shelters or on the streets that night of the count. And we know it's not a perfect count, but we do the best we can through community outreach and through our street outreach partners to identify folks and make sure that we get that accurate count. Pandemic-related reliefs really dropped that number for us. You'll see there really plummeting down for us down to about 200. But since then, we've had a very steady rise, and this rise has been very reflective really across the country. Year over year, pretty significant changes in inflow to the homeless service space. Unfortunately, what we're seeing right now is a significant drop potentially in our federal homelessness funding. Year over year, we compete for these grant dollars to support what we call permanent housing. So either permanent supportive housing for our most acute individuals and households that need long-term, not only rental assistance, but also case management support. That unit is theirs as long as they need it. We also have some shorter-term rapid rehousing, 24 months, to help people stabilize and be able to maintain that funding or that housing on their own. Here you'll see as a continuum, we have competed and earned new funding year over year. I just went back a few years here. You'll see 2022, and that number has steadily risen about $500,000 since then until this year, what we call our annual renewal demand, how much it would cost for us to fully fund last year's programs. What we're seeing happen now, though, in the newly released program competition is that our Tier 1 funding, that funding that we can consider safe, is dropping significantly. Historically, it's been 90% of our renewal costs. This year, it's down to just 30% of that renewal cost. And I can share with you certainly kind of what those numbers look like for us. But very concerning in terms of not only this year, but also future years. We'll be starting for a lower number for our renewal demand. So we know that this will have a long-term impact on our system of care. And so you'll see pretty small print up there, but these are the projects that are currently receiving these funds. Our funded agencies that receive COC dollars: Goodwill Industries of Central Illinois, Heart of Illinois United Way, Phoenix Community Development Services, Peoria Opportunities Foundation, and the Center for Prevention of Abuse, as well as Dream Center Peoria, all have permanent supportive or permanent housing projects. Again, this year, our annual renewal demand to fund all of those projects again for the upcoming cycle is just under $2.3 million, with a cap that we have to now allocate our funds to. The maximum that we can put towards permanent housing is under $690,000. So that's a reduction of about $1.35 million in permanent housing in our community. So what does that look like for us? This is our existing system capacity. Right now we have just over 500 beds in emergency shelter capacity in our 4-county service area. Not a lot of transitional housing, which is where the new administration wants to start transitioning to. But actually, we have moved significantly away from this service model and towards a housing first service model over the past many years. And so the majority of our funding is really pushed into rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. There you'll see we have about 600 units within our portfolio that is funded through not only the HUD Continuum of Care funds, but also through state funding. But when we see these 1.35 million reduction in total units, we're looking at reducing about 250 of our permanent housing units without a very real transition plan for where individuals are going to go from there. So likely what we're going to see is an influx into, unfortunately, a return to homelessness for many individuals in our community if this funding plan continues forward the way that it is. So we're trying our best to get attention on this matter, not only in terms of maybe what we could do now around advocacy to make any impacts that we can to these funding changes now, but we also know as a system we're going to have to start planning for that influx. All of our shelters are pretty much at capacity already. We're heading into very cold winter months, and our agencies are going to have to start modifying their programs to meet these changes even before the next grant cycle begins, because there are other contingency planning that has to happen around liabilities for outstanding leases, what's going to happen with these programs and projects when these funds come offline. So wanted to make that something that this body is aware of, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you. Could you go back to the chart that showed just the history of the unhoused there? So I guess how many of these funds are dependent on the unhoused that was reported during the census? I know for federal funding, a lot of times that's dependent.
It's actually a portion of the funding, and it's included in this year's grant competition as one of the allocating point factors. Unfortunately, the direction that they've taken this year is that if you've seen an increase, that is considered a failure on the part of your system, and so you're actually not getting the points. Rather than if you've seen an inflow into homelessness, knowing that you need those additional resources, you're actually getting points. It's actually going the inverse direction in this competition.
So they do look at other numbers, more current numbers other than the 2020.
Absolutely.
Reported.
They're looking back several years and what is your trend happening in that space. And there's lots of other data points that they're also looking at, including our system performance. We've done exceptionally well in the program competition because we do our providers do a really good job increasing earned income, making sure that folks aren't returning to homelessness after certain interims within our reporting period. Unfortunately, those points have been very much scaled back in this competition. I think, for example, the data that you're referencing up there, I think is worth about 13 points that we aren't going to be able to get any of those points. Whereas if we're showing that we're reducing the length of time experiencing homelessness or increasing earned income, we're seeing 1 point for each of those data elements.
And those numbers represent all 4 of the counties.
Yes,
and not
this
just one
particular
county.
number does. What I will say again, this is a snapshot, just one night. And so traditionally what we're seeing is at least on an annual basis, we're serving 2,000 unique individuals who meet that definition of homelessness that I shared, but that number continues to grow.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Phelan.
I actually have one about this slide. I'm just curious with the data that's displayed. Did you change the way that you count? Are more people counting? Could have anything have played a role in that data on this slide?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Yes, we have worked very hard on growing our partnerships and our representation across all 4 counties. So I think even between last year and this year's count, we saw a significant rise in the Fulton area, specifically in the Canton area, because we have funded providers now in that space, creating those relationships, because rural homelessness can be very difficult to capture if you don't have those relationships built. So we certainly have worked towards a stronger methodology to improve our count. Unfortunately, that is not in our best interest this year in this competition.
Yes, Member Williams.
I would just like if I could have this shared, this PowerPoint presentation shared to the members of the committee.
Agreed. Yes, Member Groves Allison.
I just want to be clear, when you say this competition, you're referring to the competition for the funds through the Department of Housing and Urban Development?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so by increasing your counting ability, or I guess streamlining it, you have seen the numbers rise, and therefore that has caused you to receive less funds? Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear.
I think the philosophy there is that your system isn't performing as strongly as it should. Unfortunately, it's not looking at the outcome measures once folks enter our system. Homelessness prevention is certainly something that we work towards, but it's not something that we always have levers to pull on. We're really the homeless response system. So once you enter our system of care is where we have a lot more, I think, focused energy and efforts to be able to make a difference. And unfortunately, those numbers aren't getting the points in this competition that they have historically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Member Phelan.
There was a slide, a capacity slide, and I think it was just north of 500 or so beds. What percentage do you find yourself operating at in relation to capacity on a daily?
The demand is there for far beyond this capacity. I will say we're not always at 100% capacity, but that's simply because of turnover, right? When a unit's vacated, sometimes it needs repairs. It can take a little while to be able to get the next person who we prioritize for that housing, to get them their documents, to get them leased up, to get them moved in. So we're not always operating at 100% capacity within rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing, but that's just logistically speaking. It's not around the demand. Right now, we have over 800 households waiting on our coordinated entry list for access to permanent housing resources in our 4 counties.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for bringing that to us. Appreciate it. All right, next we have an update on care and treatment. Mr. Baker. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Todd Baker with the 377 Board, Peoria County Care and Treatment Board. With me is Cliff Lane, who's also a member of the Care and Treatment Board. And so as we share leadership, Cliff came so he could see how threatening this environment is. So thank you guys for having us. Care and Treatment Board, is 377 Board, Peoria County, serving the disabled population in Peoria County. Thank you for your support. We current grant cycle we're in have granted grants to Best Buddies, Camp Big Sky, Community Workshop and Training Center, Easter Seals, Epic, and HISRA. The total of that grant funding is 1.6 and some change. I'm sure you guys have seen that. And so we move our meeting to meet at each one of these locations. We as members of the Care and Treatment Board go and visit with each one of the directors of these to see how our county dollars are being spent. We're very comfortable with what we're seeing. We receive quarterly reports from each one of the agencies that we fund. So we spend a little bit of time on this. Our agencies are doing amazing work. It's amazing people. I invite you to visit any one of those locations, and you'll I think understand how important this is, and this is to our community. So as we roll into next year, we have some budget changes, and we've been working to control our reserve account, which has snuck up on us. We'll be granting, or we're budgeted to grant between $1.1 and $1.2 million to the agencies in upcoming years. They're aware of that. We've worked with them on that, so they have a cool line of sight to the fact that it's going to be a little less than it's been. I would simply share that I've been at this a while, and it's quite a bit more than it was some time ago. So we're doing really amazing, good work, and happy to do that. I do want to thank CFO McCord because she helps us out. We've had a little transition in our support, and Administrator Searle and McCord have helped us out greatly. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Yes.
I think because I've spent a lot of time talking to Todd about this, I might have a little bit more insight. But Todd, could you share what the grant dollars are going towards, whether it's operations, special projects, things like that, just high level?
Sure, at a high level, the grantees, specifically at Community Workshop and Training Center and EPIC, as examples, have programs, day programs for individuals to come in and to train to try and transition into the workforce. And so some of these dollars are spent on learning how to do certain work so that they can actually, the individuals, the clients, can actually go out and enter the workforce. Our friends at Camp Big Sky make sure that there's an outdoor opportunity for individuals with disabilities. It's absolutely amazing. Again, I challenge you to go out there. It'll warm your heart. And so Best Buddies is the same. It's I don't want to call it Big Brothers, Big Sisters, because it's not it, but they pair development of disabled individuals with other individuals, and then elevate them to a ability to join a workforce somewhere and have a relevant lifestyle. Did I answer, member?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I would just say that if anybody is unaware of what they're doing, spend some time with Todd or Cliff or Danny Coach. I've just been amazed at hearing the stories and talk about really heartwarming things happening in the county. It comes from this group.
Thank you, Mr. Palin.
Agreed. And thank you for coming and sharing it with us. Appreciate it. All right, next we have emergency management. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So in my report this month, I'm happy to share that we had no significant events. Wish I could tell you the same moving forward, but I already have a call tomorrow with the Weather Service about our impending weather over the weekend. So next month I'll tell you whatever happens. We'll recap whatever happens over the weekend weather-wise. Meeting attendance, if you'll look, I mean, it's kind of been the same thing really a lot since the pandemic. Really getting back to playing emergency manager, lots of collaboration and meetings with multiple agencies throughout the community, everything from, you'll see our infectious disease, really trying to be sure we're on top of things, to as you go into training, responding effectively to complex incidents. We recently hosted 2 days worth of training from TEACS. I would say that's probably one area that, a couple of areas we struggle with in long term is we continue to struggle engagement-wise. ensuring that we get all the proper partners engaged with all of our training activities and all of our different exercises. And so we just encourage all of them that we recognize that everybody's busy, but we try to put all sorts of opportunities out in front of many of our agencies, leadership in all those agencies, so that we can participate periodically. So we'll continue to try to work on that. Exercise-wise, I had the opportunity to work with some Bradley nursing students, and we've really transitioned. We're utilizing games a lot more in our exercise play. And what you may have heard of me talk about in the past is that even as adults, we find games a little bit more enjoyable than sitting around a room and talking about when something bad happens. And so particularly this point of dispensing game, we're even running it with our staff, and it's been a great opportunity post-pandemic to kind of refresh with our staff what it would look like if we have to do about half of our staff, if not greater, weren't around when the pandemic started. And so many of them didn't get opportunity to work in a vaccination clinic or what a medical dispensing site might look like for antibiotics. And so this PODEP opportunity allows us to do that. Additionally, we had some exercise with CF Industries down in the Kingston Mines area. And one of the areas we've identified and that we're working specifically with our counterparts in Tazewell County with is incidents near or along the river in the jurisdiction. Who has authority to respond to those incidents? How do we notify, particularly many of our facilities in the Mapleton and the Kingston Mines area? Depending on prevailing winds, is that if we have an incident in that area, we may not be affected quite as much in Peoria County as our counterparts in Tazewell. And so we really need to tie it up and work up with them on how we notify individuals that might be in harm's way outside of our jurisdiction. And so we continue to do that. Outdoor warning sirens. In the past, I've shared with you, they poll every night. You don't even realize it, and then we get a test back each morning. And so we do have one siren that's got a bad amplifier right now and one with a bad speaker. So we're working with the contractor on that. And then we continue our long range looking at our outdoor warning siren system. And as we move into the future, what's the best means of ensuring that we can provide notification to the public during not only events of severe weather, but should we have to notify the public of some type of other emergency or disaster. Finally, I was selected, so I'll be serving on the Tri-County Regional Transportation Safety Committee. And then I just shared, I've served as the FEMA local board at Chairperson Dillon's request over the last year, and that term expired. And I just submitted a letter to he this morning telling him I'd continue service, and he'll be so happy to have me. So wait to see what kind of, some of that I think will determine what FEMA looks like as we move forward. There wasn't a lot this year with respect to FEMA and the local advisory board. And as we continue to deal with the new normal in emergency management and what emergency management at the federal level looks like, I'm happy to be a part and at least share my local thoughts with the feds on what emergency management looks like here in Peoria. So,
It's great. It's always nice to have a seat at the table.
thank you.
So, any questions for Jason? All right. Thank you very much.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you. Next, we have the ROE.
Good afternoon. I didn't have any updates as of the date that we submitted for the meeting today, but I think two important incidents that sort of have come to light. Obviously, there was a firearm found at a local junior high, not in the county. And then there's sort of circulating around a threat that was made at one of the Peoria County districts. And what I want to say is that the systems that we have in place, the training that the ROE has provided, those school districts, I can't speak for Tremont specifically, although there's a lot of carryover since we do most of the school safety training in our area. Those systems worked, right? It's the see something, say something, do something mentality that worked to prevent anything major from happening and ultimately those incidents to come to light. And so we just want to ensure everyone that you hear bits and pieces of a story, but the systems themselves that are in place work and work really well. As you can see, Kara is not here again. She is finishing the second to last day of the training of our new program where we're placing student support specialists in buildings to work with at-risk students. And so tomorrow is technically their last day, and then they'll be in the buildings starting next week. And so that's where she's at. But you do have some information in front of you. Typically, you get that red and green, which I even hesitate to bring up again, spreadsheet. But the system was down when she had to submit that last week. And so that's why you have something a little bit different. But you have our current up-to-date statistics there. And that's all I have.
I mean, looking at the numbers, it looks like you guys are doing a ton of work, especially over since August, even since October to November. 500 additional home and school visits, over about 300 additional phone calls and text messages. I mean, is there a reason why there's such a huge uptick?
Well, that ultimately is the work, right? It's the constant communication with families at home, trying to narrow down where a kid is at. Maybe they've changed residences, and just getting their eyes on students. And so the work in and of itself, and it's a significant portion, obviously, of what they're doing. And so there's no particular reason that they're up. I mean, our numbers are always going to be in that sort of neighborhood. So they're not, I don't think they're out of line there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I wonder this every month, so it's just kind of not a direct question necessarily, but as you're pulling students back into the routine of going to school and being there present in the classroom, what type of assistance is provided for the teachers who have to figure out what to do with the student who may have missed the first half of the year or who hasn't been advancing along because
Sure.
they haven't been there? What is there anything that the ROE offers them, or is that kind of a school by school situation?
So what we find is across the county, across all of our districts, they're all treated a little bit differently, depending on how they give credit, right? And since we're really working with K-8 students, it's not the same as working with a high school student who has to get a certain amount of seat time and work completed to get an algebra 1 credit. And so all a little bit different. Some will drop them right in, and then through differentiated instruction, right, they're going to work with each kid where they're at their skill level. And you'll see some other districts will sort of, kid goes back in and they're sort of left to get caught up on their own. And so oftentimes that's more an indicator of what they have in their local resources. Obviously, some of our smaller rural school districts don't have as many resources as far as manpower and labor. We do quite a bit of professional development training, professional learning around differentiated instruction and best practices in the classroom. And so at the end of the day, we are working with almost every county school. And so we know that they're getting training, and now it's whether they can implement with fidelity. I think that's with probably everything that we do, if it can be done with fidelity or not.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, next we have sustainability and resources. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, it's a little. I just have a few updates to the highlights and updates to the report that was submitted. Electronics collection, if we were to take October 1st to November 1st, because the last collection that was really a push in October happened on November 1st, we were able to capture 24,500 pounds of electronics from Peoria County residents. So pretty excited about that. Household hazardous waste amount was reported, I believe, last month at 172,129 pounds across those 3 GFL collections. And then also we held one in April in partnership with the IEPA. I wanted to highlight the holiday light recycling is going on currently at the same partner agencies as last year: Alpha Park, Letty Evans Library, Chillicothe Library, here at the courthouse, Health and Human Services building, and then we have a few also to make it a little bit easier for our employees to drop off at their building. Christmas tree disposal was discussed last month. We don't quite have that narrowed down with the Department of Natural Resources, so that will be, something they just haven't quite looked at yet, no matter how hard we push. But they're happy to accept them. They just haven't identified what those locations will be. So I will work with communications to get that information out mid-month to make sure that people have a plan in place before they start taking their tree down. Education and community, I just want to say that there have been a few forms that we've gotten added to the website to make it easier for community grants, for litter abatement, or solid waste reduction grants for the community, as well as the school grant remains open throughout the year. A more robust update on the landfill committee. Since there was a meeting, they hadn't met since July. They did meet October 29th, right after this committee last month. The transfer station, at that time, the footings were poured, the pit was dug, concrete was poured the last week of October. So all of that is on, the construction is scheduled again for the opening to be late spring 2026. Landfill 3 is scheduled to open 2035. They anticipate construction of that landfill site to start 2032 or 2033. Landfill tipping fees will resume with the opening of the transfer station. Contractual minimum for that tipping fee is $300,000, as you may remember, with 2026 being prorated with the late spring opening of the transfer station. There were 3 hunting and fishing leases that were renewed, as well as 21 acres of tillable farming lease. The landfill committee has a lease on some of the property that's owned by, the city and the county and the landfill committee have a lease on some of the property jointly owned for people to make the best use of that property and also keep an eye on it. One of those is a cell tower lease as well. Regional Food Council meets again December 5th. I'm jumping down to that one. For that meeting, we will have someone from Planning and Zoning coming to walk us through that meeting in a box, if any of you have done that for the comprehensive land use plan, identifying assets within the county. We'll be looking at that from a food-related and agricultural perspective. So if anybody would like to join us, we welcome you to do so at 8:30 on December 5th at HHS. The additional speaker will be from the Stewardship Alliance. We generally run through, and December is our policy and planning related meeting. And we will be running through some of the legislation that will be coming forward at the state level. And then in terms of a sustainability update, I wanted to provide a few quick slides to inform you on the work that's being done by the sustainability team to update and expand upon the existing operational sustainability plan. I've mentioned it a couple times and wanted to give you a little bit of a highlight on what that looks like. Assuming I can turn this on. There we go. Are you doing that, Scott, or am I? Okay. Thank you. Okay. As you know, we applied for in 2024 and were granted the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. And that funding paid for the facilities master plan and associated mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural studies. Those studies were in place to better inform the county's drafting of goals for energy planning with the overarching goal of identifying, prioritizing, and implementing and evaluating strategies to enhance energy efficiency, increase energy savings, and support the generation of renewable energies to the benefit of the county and its community. The existing sustainability plan adopted in 2011, if you could go forward, thank you, looked at 6 areas. We are looking to expand upon those same 6 elements. Those areas that were adopted: buildings and constructions, operations, land use. Workforce was previously titled employees in 2011 adoption. That was updated in 2015. Purchasing and resource management was adopted as solid waste management. So just a few changes there. This energy planning coincides with the 5-year update of the sustainable operational plan or the operational sustainability plan. We capture metrics across this plan, as you know, but we're looking at expanding upon those from an energy perspective. So that's really what these slides are looking at, is how we intend to expand upon what we're already doing. The policy statement for the sustainability plan, as it is written, is that Peoria County seeks in a fiscally prudent manner to attain and maintain a leadership role in environmental stewardship and sustainability in our facilities, in our operations, and in the larger community we serve, which is, I guess, essentially what was part of that EECBG grant application. So in buildings and construction, we've done a number of projects, as you know, implementing HVAC and lighting projects, also building a couple buildings in an energy efficient way. We currently track electrical, natural gas, water, and we look to expand that by looking at the energy reduction per square foot or energy use intensity, as I may have discussed with you before, and also looking at the percent use of renewable energy across our facilities. Operations is really the implementation of best practices to the reduction of single-use devices, use of toxic chemicals, as well as several energy-focused items. Some best practices and metrics are tracked but could be expanded upon, and those would be the percent reduction in fuel use per vehicle, really looking at the MPGs, and then if we're reducing the size of fleet, at least we have a better sort of understanding of that. Again, energy use intensity is included in those updates. Utilizing our building automation software a bit better and making sure we're tracking that as well. Land use looks at reduced mowing and better infiltration on county-owned land. The square footage of native plantings when planted, we're not necessarily capturing that. We're just saying that it had been done. So at this point going forward, we want to do a little bit better about being measurable in those, in pinpointing the things that we're doing, as well as the amount of water that is reduced through irrigation, separate meters. Workforce education is really the heart of this existing and expanded plan. We've done a number of things and we continue to do that, tracking employee participation and volunteer opportunities and the frequency of caught green-handed. We did that for a number of years and just brought it back recently as well, to make sure we're continuing to educate staff with a monthly internal newsletter as well as our community newsletter. Okay. Purchasing really looks at durable goods, life cycle analysis, and expansion of collaborative purchasing. This, Jim was on the initial team in drafting this plan, and so he and I did a couple presentations early on, and that a lot of that has remained in place, and Jim has carried those items forward, looking at return on investment, and estimating that and including that in the data to you when you're making a decision, and then tracking instances or future opportunities for cooperative purchasing. We do a great job already of tracking or of reusing, office material, be it things as simple as file organizing devices or furniture as offices move around the building. Resource management throughout the plan, the operational sustainability plan, we're calling for the reduction in reuse. This section of the plan really looks at recycling and safe disposal. So reduction of hazardous waste, reuse of office supplies and furniture as discussed, and then a robust recycling program. Those metrics would be the volume of waste diverted, and also the participation rates by diversion program or event. Energy plan outcomes. So how are we really expanding upon what's already there? We want to make sure that some of our metrics are not time bound, as well as maybe they could be. So overall in 2011, the sustainability plan called for a 2% reduction of energy and water use. In 2021, we updated that to be an annual 2% reduction. There's ability for us to set some goals and then have a target to reach, and also sort of backcast how we're going to get there. So that's what you'll see in the energy outcomes of the sustainability plan, and then also in terms of here's the energy resilience section. Yes. So we also, in terms of looking at energy resilience and adding that as a seventh component of the sustainability plan, we haven't really looked at resilience. We want to make sure. Can you go back one slide, Scott? Thanks. We want to increase resilience and the share of clean energy supply for county operations. So assessing areas of vulnerability, installing backup generation, pursuing on-site renewable generation. We have a number of our critical facilities that have backup power sources. We want to make sure that we are reporting that and are prepared for any brownouts or blackouts or emergencies. The data and reporting has been done. It could be expanded upon, and that's what we're looking to do, is to find those areas of expansion with an energy focus, and then also to report that to you a little more transparently than we have before. Okay, more staff. We'll be back in January. The sustainability team continues to meet frequently to sort of get this energy plan completed. We will be back in January with further recommendations, but in the meantime, I'm happy to take any feedback you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or feedback? Yes, Member Phelan.
I'm just going to try and talk the whole meeting. The only thing I would say is, and I don't see it in there, I think it's awesome that we have all these very strong goals at the top of each one of those slides, but I don't see any inclusion that sort of is like we follow that goal when it makes most sense. And an example I would use, and please do not take this as criticism, but I recently heard IT was looking at a vehicle because the Priuses that we have they have access to cannot accommodate their equipment. And so I think we need a component of this that maintains like sensibility to what the outcome of our decisions would be. That would be the only feedback. Otherwise, I'm very happy to see what you have together.
Thank you.
Any other questions or feedback? Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Okay, and last but not least, we have the Center for Prevention of Abuse, the Long-Term Care Ombudsman update.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be back to kind of let you know how our partnership has went over the last 3 months with the county board. You should have in your packet a sheet that lists all the raw data of all of the metrics that my staff have completed in long-term care centers across the county. I want you to notice the second set of metrics, which is cases closed. A case is when one of our workers go into a facility and receive permission from a resident to advocate on their behalf. That's what your dollars are going toward, is helping teach these residents how that they can stand up for their rights in a nursing home or in a supportive living or developmentally disabled home. This segment of the population is often forgotten, although it is a huge segment. Statistically, you might be surprised to learn that 7 out of every 10 of us, statistically, at some point within our lifetime, are going to need full-time care in some sort of a long-term care facility. And I like to take a couple of minutes each time I report to share about some of the things we do for these residents who are your constituents, and to show you how these dollars are being spent wisely. Certainly, we do take care of a lot of really awful things such as abuse and neglect. But these dollars are also spent on very practical things. For instance, we had an ombudsman that attended a resident council meeting at a nursing home, and the residents were upset because they hadn't had coffee for a whole week. These folks, many of them are of an age that they drank coffee since they were 13 or 14 years old. And by the way, this same facility had just instituted a no smoking policy. So not only were they not smoking, they were doing without their coffee. And our ombudsman found out that they had coffee in all of the staff meeting rooms, but not enough to go for the residents. And before our ombudsman left, we were able to talk with them, and guess what? They had coffee to share with all of the residents. So that's a big plus. It was a big win. We had a resident that was due to go out for dialysis, and the facility stated that they had run out of portable oxygen. How do you do that? And they were getting ready to send this lady to go for her treatment without having the benefit of oxygen. And the resident gave the ombudsman permission to advocate, and we were able to, and I put this in air quotes, to find some full containers of oxygen so that this lady could go on and be able to be safely taken care of. Everyone has issues that are hot button issues. For me, it's treating these folks with dignity. We've lived 70, 80 years, and just because you go to a nursing home does not mean that you go there to die. You go there to live as full of the life as possible. And this gentleman made the statement that he hadn't had a shave in over a week. And something that simple, our people were able to go and get him on a regular schedule. And this may sound small, but they're life-changing things for a lot of people. I'll give you just a couple more, and then I'll let you go. We had a lady that was in a home that hadn't received her personal needs allowance for over 6 months. And our ombudsman was able to see that this lady received her funds, and she was able to buy things that were important for her, hygiene items. Just imagine what we would do if we weren't able to buy the things at the grocery store that we need. And I'll share one more with you. We had a lady that she complained she'd not had a shower or her hair wash since she had entered the facility. Hold on, 2 months. And we were able to verify that through records being kept. That's just not acceptable. And it's awful that it takes someone to go in and to fix these problems. But in this world we're living in, that's what it takes. Our people are more than happy to help fill that job. And this lady was able to get on a schedule. That's the kind of things that your dollars are funding. And we appreciate so much. If you'd ever like to come out to the center, we would count it an honor to have you join one of our people, and we can show you firsthand what we do. Be a blessing.
Thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions, comments? And I didn't see the numbers in our packet, but I'll make sure that we get them sent out to everybody. Okay. All right. Thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Okay. We do not have any resolutions. Anything for discussion? Is there any public comment? Anything from us miscellaneous? Okay, we're adjourned.